Oh yeah.
Because right now I'm just talking into this blue snowball mic that I've had since I was like 12 years old, and it's a champ. It's a champ, man. But it is so beat up, and
Maybe time to like upgrade.
I mean, I guess, after a couple decades, maybe I can justify it. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm not saying, this ain't the Joe Rogan show, but, making it a little easier to listen to is always a good thing. So, and yeah. I don't know about you, but I am super self-conscious about mouth sounds.
I am too, but, I've just had to get over it because in the age of, the Zoom conference call meeting, mm-hmm. I'm on a microphone all the time talking to other people.
Yeah. Yeah, gotta get over it. I know, no joke, I've had nightmares about just standing up to in front of people and just being like, there's no way to stop this, drinking all the water I can, and it just keeps going,
Yep.
Oh,
that's accurate.
Oh, well. So, my good friend Shawn, let's see here. I need to grab a guitar or something so that you can delight the listening audience with some Enya renditions.
I'm sorry, what?
Bro, won't you?
No, I will not.
Well, that was going to be my intro because that is one of my earliest and happiest memories with you was back in high school. I think that everybody else in the Payson High School pipe band had gone to an assembly or something like that. And for some reason, it was just you, myself, Zach, maybe Levi, a couple of the younger guys, who would come up. That were just sitting there on the stage, and there was this grand piano, and I started playing some Enya songs, and you sang. I'm not joking around. It was gorgeous. You sang this crystal clear falsetto. It was Pilgrim. You sang Pilgrim from the Watermark out. Or was it Watermark? No, wait. Which album is Pilgrim from? I think it's Watermark.
Yeah, I think so.
Or was it A Day Without Rain? It's one of those watery ones. Anyway, and I've never not remembered that. It's this memory that's forever present in my mind.
Oh, that's sweet. But I am not a great singer.
Well, sometimes memory is kind to us, and maybe you have the benefit of the kindness in my own memory. But I remember it being
I'm going to go with that.
I was surprised, I was just sitting there whoa, hey. This guy does more than play bagpipes.
Yeah, I don't really. But that's very kind of you to say.
Mm-hmm. Well, so we go back that far to the Payson High School pipe band days. Is that where you started playing bagpipes? Was in the high school band, or did you start playing with White Peaks or somebody else before then?
I started playing with Lynette just in the Channer class in junior high. And then I got private lessons with Queen Susan.
With Queen Susan.
That was mostly just an excuse to goof off on a Saturday morning. But we also learned some stuff.
But now I don't think she would take this as anything but a compliment. But is pretty much anything that involves Susan an excuse to goof off?
I kind of think so.
Yeah.
And I think that, I think she would consider that a badge of honor.
Absolutely. Well, she's earned it.
But yeah, so that was when I first started, and Lynette really ran that class really well, at least in my mind, in my memory, because she split it into 3 groups so that there were 3 quote bands, and we all got to pick our own medley, and by the end of the year exam or whatever was to play that medley in a faux competition.
Really?
And she had her sister come and judge it, and I can't remember who else. I'll have to ask, but there was someone else from the high school band at the time that came to judge that, and so I remember being in the group that won the competition.
Well,
and I think it was a year-long class, and I joined halfway through the year, and I was so obsessed with learning to play.
Yeah. What other amazing things did you do, Shawn?
I just remember getting in there and whipping through all of the beginner materials because I wanted to play songs, tunes.
And
I didn't want to play dirge for the rest of my life.
This was junior high age, right? This was, what were you, like 13, 14 years old?
Yeah, probably 14.
Yeah. I was just talking to Leanne, and I did an interview with Leanne just the other day, and so she was talking a little bit about, the program that Lynette ran and stuff, and until you just said it just now, I'd never even thought of having chanter class students do medleys. That's a great idea.
It was a lot of fun because this is the failing of like the music education system, I think, is that it always teaches you hot cross buns, right? As an example, like no 14-year-old kid wants to learn dirge. They want to play like something cool, and I knew that I wanted to play the Blue Cloud.
Oh, and man, so, yeah.
I was really driven, and part of that was in my lessons too. Like Susan just had access to a ton of music because she'd been playing for years and years already. And so I just was very driven, and learning to play a medley with a group that early on was a really fun experience.
Probably even formative.
Probably, yeah.
At least
because I don't even think I knew that that's what you did with bagpipes. Like my experience with bagpipes to that point had just been like as a spectator in parades, and I thought that was cool. So it kind of opened my eyes and made me realize, like, hey, this might be what I want.
Well, it hits a little close to home because I'm teaching my son to play right now, and the first thing I taught him was hot cross buns. But he is he's only 8, so I don't feel quite so bad about it.
Yeah. No, it's okay because I'm a huge proponent, and the band probably hates this about me, but I'm not like a huge proponent of very traditional stuff too. Like I think that it's important to have a strong foundation in tradition and where the bagpipe comes from, and part of that is learning things along those lines. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I also think it's not the best learning experience to force people or limit people from learning new things as well, because the way it stays fun and stays fresh is by you also having a hand, right, as the student in learning things and deciding what you want to learn and when. So
you can kind of own the experience.
Yeah. And so it's like really it's important to have those foundations, but it's also important to have fun.
That is it is an interesting sort of is it a dichotomy? I don't know, maybe just a difference of theories or philosophies that it seems like. And now I don't know if Picasso actually said this, or if it was said of Picasso, or if it's been erroneously credited to him or something like that, but I have this like loose quote floating in my head that Picasso was so good at breaking the rules because he understood the rules first.
Yeah, I've heard something along those lines before, and I don't know where it comes from exactly, but I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. It seems like, I mean, this has been on my mind lately anyway, because the book that we use in our beginner class, I've been trying to put together some YouTube videos to go along with it, and I do feel worried sometimes about, like, it seems like there's, I don't know if it's fair to call it the more traditional camp, but there is a camp that would say, like, you must learn the scale and then all the embellishments before learning any song at all. And then there's another school of thought that would say, get them a song as fast as possible because that's where it's fun. And if you make them learn Tarluiths before they can start on Scotland the Brave, they'll quit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of agree with both schools of thought a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess I would fall somewhere.
Dichotomy, but
I would fall somewhere in the middle. Like, yeah, I think it's important that you get that foundation and learn the Tarluith because, like, that's one of the first movements in Scotland the Brave. So here's Scotland the Brave, and here's how to do a Tarluith. Do both of them this week, and come back to me, and we'll talk. That's my philosophy.
That makes a lot of sense. Then you see the fundamental within a song.
Yeah.
So wise.
I did that with the band, actually, during one of our band Saturdays with the Bubbly Note, too.
The Bubbly Note, I remember that. What was the name of the tune?
I make people... Devil in the Kitchen, maybe?
Devil in the Kitchen, that's right, yeah.
But, yeah, I didn't make the band memorize a scale with Bubbly Notes before they got the tune. I gave them the tune and said, here's how you do this one movement in the tune. Ready to go.
Yeah,
And I think it worked out pretty well.
It did. It was really enjoyable. And for me personally, it had been like 10 years since I had played Devil in the Kitchen and also a bubbly note. So it was really,
right.
I think I was able to look at it with the eyes of someone coming to both for the first time, and it did work well. I thought it worked really well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously some people latched on a little bit better than others, but that's always going to be the case. Some people are going to get one thing but not another, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So it all comes with your personal practice time.
That's for sure, yeah. The now you mentioned that your experience before joining the chanter class when you were a teenager was as a spectator at parades and stuff. Is that the entirety of your exposure to bagpipes before starting to play?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you were like, you didn't have any older siblings or previous generations of pipers or anything like that to kind of guide you on the journey. You just dove in.
No, not really. In fact, I almost want to say that well, that's not true. I did know Susan before that because I started hanging out with Andrew when I was in middle school. Mm. But I think the real like aha moment for me, and they were very close together, but one was White Peaks was in the Santa Quinn parade, and like people got like super psyched when they like walked by. Mm-hmm. And so that I was like, that's kind of cool. I wonder if I could do that. And then I think the thing that drove the nail into the coffin for me was seeing the high school pipe band perform at an assembly once or something. Mm. I can't remember exactly the order those happened.
They'd come to visit at the middle school or something
like that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Mm. And I thought, because like everyone just thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I don't know if they did or if I just thought they did. I don't know. It was a lot of fun, though. High school pipe band was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was fun because you were there, right?
No, I think it was fun because of other things, too.
But mostly because you were there.
We were so crazy. There are things that we did in band that I'm like, I can't believe I did that.
So, aside from pipe band stuff, what other hobbies do you have? What other interests do you have?
I mean, they're so varied. Mm-hmm. I can never focus on anything for too long. Bagpipes was the only exception, I think. I played it obsessively until I was like 26 or 27 and then just stopped for several years because I think I had enough at that point and just needed a break. Yeah. And so in the interim, like I've painted Warhammer figures, which is a lot of fun, but also kills my neck and back because I never sit right for it. I always am hunched over. I've become a very avid like gamer. I play Guild Wars 2 a lot, like probably more than I should.
What class or what in general terms, since not many people listening will be playing, but in general terms, what kind of class character do you like to play?
I always have to play a mage, like a caster character. I just don't resonate with like rogues or heavy armor classes. I always like to destroy people with my mind, which is actually, if I think about it, very much like me in real life.
Because I wasn't going to say anything, but that's
manipulative person. So yeah, that's like my go-to in every game I've played. But other hobbies, that I picked up the auto harp recently.
I'm still getting some chords together for you for some pipe songs.
Oh, good, because I'm like waiting with bated breath.
And like every day you just sit still next to the computer, like maybe it'll come out.
Yes, like I open my inbox and I'm like, oh, it's not today.
Darren's like, what are you doing? Just waiting.
No, I've picked up some other songs and stuff along the way, and I give it a couple hours, at least a week. Usually I play for like 30 minutes a day at least, but some weeks, get crazy and I don't. Other hobbies, I do like to sew. I'm a costumer, so I've made several very elaborate costumes, mostly for Halloween. But
I remember your Morticia and Gomez Adams. Were those both creations of your own?
So the suit for Gomez was not, but the dress for Morticia and kind of the wig was. We added extensions to a really cheap, like party city wig. So, but I didn't add the extensions. Darren does the hair stuff. I do the sewing stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm self-taught as a sewer also, which means I spend a lot of time on YouTube because I don't understand some
Mm.
things.
Is
When I
it
get to a
is
part
it
in a pattern, I'm like, I don't know what that means. So we're going to find a YouTube video.
is this pretty much all stuff that kind of you imagine or desire to do to use yourself, or have you like done stuff with community theater or by commission, like other family members or friends ask for something?
I've only ever done one commission, and it was as part of a fundraiser, actually.
Mm.
There was a friend that I met through Darren that really wanted to be Sarah Sanderson from Hocus Pocus one year. And so I commissioned, or she commissioned of me a dress, but she bought it as part of an auction for
Oh, I
charity.
see. I see. She purchased the
Um,
commission, as it were.
yeah,
I
yeah.
see.
And it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot on that. I had never made a corset before, and
Mm-hmm.
so I made a brand new corset from scratch with steel boning in it. That was kind of interesting, but not as hard as I thought it would be.
No, it sounds intimidating to me for sure. I
It was, but once I got into it, it really all just came together and made a lot of sense the way everything
hmm.
should be.
I was a gardener for a little while shortly after high school. I didn't get accepted to BYU. I had a terrible grade point average, and just academically I've never been super impressive. But at the time the economy was very strong and they did not have enough students to fill student job positions. And so I didn't get in as a student, but I worked there as a gardener. And it just so happened that the grounds crew that I was on was entirely staffed by members of the Pen and the Quill Club, which is a LARPing group.
Oh,
Well,
really?
if one of them hears this, they'll probably say we do more than LARP. Yeah, and that's fair. But every day at lunch during the lunch hour, they'd all whip out either poetry they were working on or sewing projects they were working on, and work on.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
I can see clearly in my mind still a girl working on a corset across the table from me as I was eating a sandwich.
That's funny. You know what? So, like five or 6 years ago, I would never have ever considered using hand stitching if I could at all avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the last 6 or 7 months, I've come to realize that you can do so many really cool things if you're
Mm-hmm.
hand stitching that you can't do with a machine, and it looks better. And I mean, to the untrained eye, it probably wouldn't. It doesn't matter. A machine is they exist because they save time and you can mass produce something.
Mm-hmm.
But hand sewing is a lost art that really has a lot of value. I really respect people who can hand sew a garment.
Mm. Have you ever attempted anything that would go with your bagpiping uniform, be it a kilt or a Prince Charles jacket or anything like that?
I actually was thinking about trying to make a kilt because the one I have is a little bit big because I lost a little bit of weight after I ordered it. And I could
Congrats.
just move. I thank you. I could just move the buckles, which is a
Yeah.
pretty simple project. But I've actually considered like just getting the tartan and trying to make
Mm-hmm.
one from scratch because mine's a light kilt too. It's not a full weight kilt.
Man, you love the
Um,
feel of a full weight kilt, don't you?
yeah, yeah. So I might, but I also like don't want to spend the money. So,
Oh, sure. I mean, that's a lot of fabric.
right.
I've got an aunt who made some dance kilts for her daughter and some friends or something like that when they were doing some Highland dance, and she said she'll never make another kilt. She sews a lot, and she said that was just the hardest thing she's ever done.
They do look like they would be pretty brutal to make. Honestly, pleating is very hard, and it's very hard to keep it straight.
Mm-hmm.
And you compress it until the cows come home, but then once you set it to the machine, something could go wrong, and it will just mess it up, and you'll have to unpick it.
Well, it gives you a little more appreciation for why they are as expensive as they are, huh? To
Yeah,
get a good kilt.
definitely, definitely.
So, you've played with a few different groups. Will you carry me through, maybe in chronological order, where you've played pipes?
Yeah, sure. So as we talked about earlier, I did start in the high school pipe band. I played there through my whole high school career. I also taught or helped teach the chanter class during that time. And then during my senior year, I actually joined White Peaks pipe band and played with both groups whenever I was allowed. I mean, in competition, you can only play with one in most situations, but I did start with them when I was a senior, and I played with them for a long time. I don't even remember how long. I'd have to pull old rosters or something. But then when I was probably like 22 or 23, I did venture out to San Francisco, and I joined with the Irish Pipers of San Francisco and played with them for a season. And that was kind of an interesting experience. They had a very interesting philosophy towards Highland music, mostly that it shouldn't exist and it should all be Irish music. And I have to admit, I'm not a connoisseur of Irish music, so I don't know the subtle differences that exist between the two. I thought bagpipes were pretty much bagpipes.
Yeah.
I mean, all the world's recordings I've ever listened to, I couldn't, unless I'm looking at the track list, I couldn't tell which one was an Irish band versus which one was a Scottish band.
Yeah.
So, but they were a good group. They had gone through some turbulent times in the years previous, and so they had been back and forth between grade 4 and grade 3 a few times. When I played with them, that was their grade 3 band, and it was kind of interesting to play up a grade. That was the highest band grade that I ever competed in, and the competition was a lot more stiff, especially out in California. People know their stuff, and they rehearse, and they come and they bring their A game every time. It was really impressive to see.
What did rehearsing look like for you in that case? Did you move out there for a while, or did you kind of go out periodically for a
No, I took like private lessons from their pipe major once a month, basically, and it was just like a video conference or whatever, webcam. And he would give me stuff to work on, tell me, where I was doing well, where I needed to improve. And then I did fly out there for one like combined band rehearsal, and then it was just competition through the summer. And I mean, I was holding my own. They definitely had members that were weaker players than I was, and so I was not ever in danger of being cut. But I think I could have benefited from being there more frequently, for sure.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'd imagine that would make a difference in any case. But to some degree, being able to do it in a remote situation is kind of a confidence boost too. I mean, you kind of have to rely on your own determination in order to get the practice done and stuff like that.
And I was really nervous about it. Their medley was very complex. They had a couple of reprises of the same jig throughout, and so it just had some weird transitions that, without playing with the band, you sort of have to just hope you're doing it right, and then the day of, you go through it a couple times and you make adjustments or you die, basically. But it was, I mean, I was nervous the first competition we did, but when I got out there and was actually playing with the band, it became apparent that I was going to be fine. But there definitely was that sort of anxiety of like, am I going to be good enough? Are they going to kill me? Like, what's going on? Because I didn't have a lot to go on.
What was the impetus to go out to California and join the group? Was that your idea, or was it suggested to you?
A little bit of both. I was obviously, I don't think it's any secret to anyone who knows me, experiencing a little bit of unrest with White Peaks. I was very frustrated, and I think that John was very sort of upset by that. Not like, I don't know, not I don't know if upset is the right word, but just, I think he felt like it was a slap in the face. And it wasn't intended to be. I was just unhappy. And so I just felt like things were not headed in a very healthy direction for me personally. And so I took steps to remove myself and just try something new. And, it was fun. It was a good experience. And it was really neat to play in a different grade and in a different state more frequently. But it it wasn't any different really. At the end of the day, there were still the same issues in the band. It was just the overall playing ability of the band was a little bit higher than I was used to. So there were still people who were not coming to rehearsal. There were, there were just the same issues. People who didn't know their music, people who were habitually late, that didn't have their uniform together. It was always the same issues, and it was never different. And that was true of all three bands that I was in.
But not Garden Valley, of course. Garden Valley's perfect.
Yes, Garden Valley is perfect.
Yeah. Well, it does seem like we could take that saying that people are people wherever you go, and probably perfectly accurately say pipe bands are pipe bands wherever you go, because they are comprised of people. Well, I have no wisdom, but it seems like there's some nugget of wisdom in this experience.
The grass isn't always greener?
Maybe that's it. Or maybe the grass...
It's never greener, actually. It's the same color.
Right, or we could say it's equally green in all places.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, and I've talked about that before too, because I can imagine that there might be some level of I don't want him to feel in any way guilty or bad. We've had some other band members too that have come to Garden Valley and then go play with other bands, and I think that's great, honestly. And
agreed.
I can't speak for everybody who was involved in starting Garden Valley, but I know that was important to Zach. He really wanted people to try all kinds of bands, and with no expectation that they would start at Garden Valley and end there again either, and that probably is partly born from his experience of playing with a lot of different bands. But he had this glorious vision that everybody in all bands would play with all bands, and so everybody would all become friends and have different experiences and stuff like that. That would be a really good thing.
Yeah, and I think there would be a lot of value in something like that, because, I mean, I don't know how much you know, but in the early days when I was playing with White Peaks, as a senior, there was a ton of animosity amongst every band in this state. Everybody thought everyone had it in for each other, and there was tons of backbiting and arguing and rule checking and just any kind of petty thing imaginable that you could think of. And we're talking about, at that point, there wasn't even a grade 3 band in Utah. It was all grade 4. That was all there was. So everyone had an even playing field.
And what
but there was just so much animosity.
There would have been White Peaks, Utah Pipe Band, Salt Lake Scots, Wasatch District, and then Ben Lomond and Payson High School, right? So 6 bands?
No, I want to say there's another one. What's the one from SUU?
Oh, the Scotsmen.
Yeah.
They were competing at the time too, huh? Because they've kind of come in and out of existence here.
They go in and out, yeah. And I think they
understandably,
were.
As a university band, that could be a challenge to always have competition numbers and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so, that's all there was. And they were all in the same grade. So I don't know why there was so much animosity, but you could just hear whisperings of it if you were paying attention.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. And I think things have come a long way. I think that the changes in some of WUSPBA's rules, as well as the Great Basin Branch's rules and bylaws, have made an overall healthier playing experience for people. But I do think there's still some old angry codgers out there that are little holdouts from the previous regime, if you will.
Well, they'll die eventually, right?
But yeah, like in general, I think that things are healthier than they've ever been for this branch.
Well, that's great. That's beautiful to hear. One of the things that Zach talked about when we were setting Garden Valley up was he was like, let's be an educational group first, and if we have students that come through our program that then go and play in every single band, won't that be great? Because then we'll have friends everywhere.
Exactly.
And so that's why I know that some families that have been in our band like felt some guilt and stuff about going to other bands, but part of it is that honestly, especially some of these kids who are just learning so fast, they should absolutely, with a clear conscience, go and play with a higher grade band because they're ready for it. Go get that experience where you can. It's a good thing.
That's how I feel too, and I hope the band recognizes that. I tried to make that clear, earlier this year, but I don't want people to be like me. I don't want them to stick with something just out of guilt or obligation and be bitter and angry about it because I was very bitter and very angry for a lot of years. And it eventually led me to stop playing altogether.
And nobody will, I mean, we don't want that for anybody.
Exactly. And Zach and Diana had to practically beg me to come and play again. And I've had a lot of fun with Garden Valley. There have been some ups and downs, and it's been very stressful to try and be the pipe major as well, especially in such a bizarre time. We've had a lot of turbulence over the last 2 years, and it's been hard to get through that. And so I'm hoping that whoever decides to take on that mantle this year recognizes that it's okay if people leave, because I don't want to hold people back. I don't want to hold talent back out of obligation. It's important for people who are outpacing their peers to find new peers. That's how we get better.
Yeah, for sure. So Shawn, and I can cut this question out. Do you want to talk at all about the difficulty you've had with your nerves and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty open about it. Not too many people have asked for that much detail, and so it probably seems really enigmatic to a lot of the band. But even before I joined Garden Valley, I had noticed some issues playing my pipes, specifically just on my left hand, so the top hand. It was just not responding the way I remembered it, and for a long time, I put it off and sort of shoved it to the back of my mind and thought, no, you just weren't as good as you think you were. Or your playing ability wasn't as developed as you thought it was. This is just all in your head. And so for several years, I mean, I would say that I even saw early signs of this when I was playing with the Irish Pipers in
but
San
just didn't
Francisco.
recognize it, maybe.
Yeah, I thought, oh, it's just because I'm a little bit rusty or something, or just got to hash through it a few more times. And I put it off and didn't think about it until I really did try to come back full time and play with Garden Valley. And I just, month after month, I just did not experience any kind of improvement. And I thought, this cannot be normal. This is not how I used to play, and there's no reason that I can comprehend that I should not be able to do these movements. And so I started doing some research. Of course, everyone starts with Dr. Google, right?
Of course.
And even though I have access to like an entire compendium of medical literature,
because you work in the field of medicine.
Yes, I could literally pull up any PubMed article. There's the whole lexicon of medical literature I could access, and I start with Dr. Google. But also, I think that's because Google's better than any other search engine ever invented. So
yeah, they've really got a hold of us, don't they? It's so good. It works so well.
Yeah.
I've tried using some alternatives lately, and they just do not compare.
Yeah, there's a reason that we don't say just Bing it, because Bing is not a real search engine.
So they'd sure like us too, wouldn't they?
Yeah. But anyway, so I started Googling, read some things, developed some theories. You know, at one point I thought that it was just fatigue, like a sort of a tennis elbow, if you will, but tendonitis more just in the tendons of the hand. But I didn't really have any inflammation that was palpable, no swelling, no warmth. So I thought, well, that can't be it. Eventually, article after article led me down this neurological deficit path, where I discovered, and I had never heard of this before, but this condition called dystonia that causes some of the nerves, and a lot of people experience it in like the head and neck area, where the nerves will just cause the muscles to contract involuntarily for no reason. They literally don't know what causes this. There are theories, but like no one knows for sure what causes it. Musicians and writers have historically suffered from things called writer's cramp or musician's cramp, which is a form of dystonia called focal dystonia, which affects the extremities, usually the hands or fingers of people who do repetitive motions. So it can happen to anyone who's spending large amounts of time doing the same kinds of motions over and over.
Mm.
And a light went off when I read about that, because I thought, how many hours did I spend in high school, um, through my college career, even post college, just rehearsing. I mean, my grades were never super great either. Uh, I kept a decent average, I guess, but definitely had some ups and downs. And it was because I was spending so much time rehearsing that I wasn't actually doing my homework.
You were playing the Blue Cloud, dagnabbit.
Yeah, yeah. And so I started researching more and more and found out that this is pretty common in people who play, especially like woodwind instruments, because they typically have a lot more physical movement involved in the playing of the notes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyway, I got an appointment with a neurologist. She sort of did an examination. I had several appointments with her. We tried a bunch of different things to rule other stuff out.
Did she ever have you play your pipes for her, just to see?
Yeah. Well, not my pipes. I brought in my practice tenor one time and showed her. I said, "This is what a relaxed finger posture should look like, and I should be able to maintain this, and I can't." And so then I played for her to show her how my hand responded to playing. And
could you kind of describe that a little bit, in case some? I mean, I'm just who knows, but this is the kind of thing I live in fear of all the time. And so it's partly my own stress, maybe, but tell me about it. What does it feel like when that starts to take over? When it starts to kind of cramp up.
I can have a perfectly normal day doing perfectly normal things, but the minute my forefinger and thumb touch a chanter, I can feel the muscles start to contract, and so no matter what, I can focus. And this is why I sweat so much too, I think, when I play.
Do you sweat because a lot I'm focusing?
Like not more than usual. Because I can't, no matter how hard I focus on it, I can't stop it from happening. So my fingers slowly will try to curl almost into a fist.
Yeah. I have seen that happen when you're playing.
Yeah. And I can't do anything about it. I have tried bandages. I've tried braces. I have tried splints. I have tried medications, oral medications. Nothing will stop it. I get minor symptom relief from taking anticholinergic medications like Benadryl, and the thought is that slows down some of the neuron firings in the brain, and so it prevents some of these random firings from happening, which alleviates the symptoms, but it never makes them go away. So, like when we were doing our band Saturdays, probably most of the band doesn't know this, but I was hopped up on like 100, 200 milligrams of Benadryl during all of that.
Oh man, you poor guy.
And trying to play.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So if anything weird happened on band Saturday, everybody just don't think about it too hard, because
right. I was probably
drugs.
Only halfway awake.
Yeah. Don't talk to sober and fully awake Shawn about what drugged up Shawn did at band Saturday.
Right. So because I've had such exposure to high doses of it already, I don't suffer from too much drowsiness when I take it. It's mostly just dry mouth and dry eye.
That's funny, because your eyes were so red on band Saturday, It's like, that's why. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how to adequately express my condolences, but I feel for you, man. And for what it's worth, I think that you've handled it admirably in looking to the auto harp to continue expressing, music in a free way that's not not going to cause this little thing to happen with your hand.
Yeah, I mean, part of that was that I've just never played a string instrument before, but part of it is that I can play it with the right hand, basically, and it's still exercising my musical talent, but just in a different way that doesn't cause pain and anger, I guess. I'm very frustrated.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, it would be so frustrating. Yeah.
it's very hard to be in charge of a group and have them look to you for leadership and expect you to lead them into battle, as it were, and you go in and you sort of are like waving around a wet noodle and they've all got sharp swords.
Yeah.
That's what I would parallel it with, is that I feel like I'm going into battle for competition and I've got a wet noodle to fight and everyone else has full battle armor.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine it compounds because, like, even if you weren't running the group, you've played at a pretty high level before. Where have you competed as a soloist? Have you competed up above grade 3?
Yes. So my solo career went up to grade 1.
I thought so.
And I went pretty quickly, too. All things considered, I mean, the number of years I had been playing and things like that. But
I've been playing for 15 plus years and I can't break out of grade 3. So you're impressing me already.
You could if you wanted.
You go on.
It just takes practice and dedication, man.
Yeah.
That's what all of this is going to boil down to. I'm going to tell everybody to practice, be dedicated and practice.
Well, but you're scaring us all because now it's like, well, if I practice too much,
to be fair, dystonia only affects about 1 to 3% of professional level musicians.
Yeah, but
and so if you're not playing at the professional level, you're probably okay.
Yeah,
we're talking. I was like 6 to 8 hours of practice every day for like 12 years or more.
And I didn't mean to derail the flow of it there. I just was thinking, like, I can imagine that it would be frustrating and cause anger, even if it was just you playing, having played at such a high level, that your brain says, okay, fingers, do this, and then they won't do it. That would be frustrating anyway. But then to also be in a position of leadership where other people are watching you, that would only compound it.
Yeah, it's really hard. Which is why I decided to not be the pipe major this year. It's not because I don't want to be. I love that role, and I had always wanted that role. If I'm being honest, I was very ambitious early on, but I can't. It's not fair to me because it makes me upset, and it's not fair to the band because they deserve to have someone who can at least play what the leader's telling them to play, if that makes sense.
Well,
and I can't.
I mean, I'm sure anybody would agree with me. There's no love lost. It's remarkable that you did it for a while anyway, and you still got this wealth of knowledge. I mean, a lot. You've got a lot to give, you know, and I don't think anybody loses any respect for you either. In a similar way that, like, there ought not be any love lost for anybody who leaves a band to pursue, you know, even just to get the flavor of another band. It's great, you know. Everybody, we should cheer each other on this little journey that they're going on. I don't think there's any love lost for you, you know, deciding not to be pipe major. That's perfectly understandable.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it probably looks like, you know, we've had a bum year, and so I'm just like over it, and that's not the case.
Like, if y'all would have won, I would have stayed.
Yeah, that's not the case at all.
Well, it's a bum year for everybody.
It really is. How about this pandemic? Like,
yeah,
it's almost October, and it's almost back around again to the beginning. It started in December.
Yeah, it's a mess. Well, I don't mean to jump around chronologically, Shawn, but I am curious what your closest friends and family thought of your piping habit or even obsession as it grew when you were young and, you know, as it got deeper and deeper. So
I don't really know what my sister thought, but I do know my mom thought I was crazy. She totally poo-pooed this. When I told her, hey, I want to learn to play the bagpipe. She's like, yeah, okay, right, okay, go for it. And so she let me get the practice chanter and enroll in the class. And then
probably thinking to herself, this won't last.
Yeah, she's like, this is going to be 6 months at best.
It's like $40 to let him dash his own dreams. Fine.
Yeah, exactly. And then the following year, after I had made it into the high school pipe band, I told her that I wanted pipes for Christmas. And she's like, well, you're not getting $1,000 Christmas present. Mind you, to those listening, a set of bagpipes for $1,000 that are made out of wood is a bargain. No, it doesn't matter who you are. They were blackwood. They were beautiful, beaded, combed. The whole 9 yards.
Were these the classic Dave Booth set?
Yes, absolutely. Which to this day I still think sound better than any other set that I've heard, at least locally.
I talked about that with Leanne. I'm still playing on my Booths. Part of it is that these are the only pipes I've ever had, but I do love them. I've never felt any motivation to move on to a different set.
They're a really great set. But so I told Mom I wanted this set of bagpipes, and she's like, yeah, no. And I'm like, what if I pay for half? Because I had a job as a bagger at the time. So I was making $5 an hour bagging groceries and taking them out to old ladies' cars.
Payson Market or the Smiths there in Payson, or was it down in San Diego?
It was at Smiths. Yeah, it was at Smiths. And so I saved up my money. I have never saved for anything like that in my life. If I could do that for anything else, never again. No. So I just poured everything I had into savings until I had enough money to front half of that. And then she relented, and I took the money that I had and then a check that she cut to Don, and I'm like, can I has now? And so he didn't have any on hand, so he had to order them from Sandy, who may or may not be associated with the mob. We're still unclear.
Sandy St. James works some miracles that it's either the mob or it's a god. It's one or the other.
Yeah, and so I think it's more likely the mob, but I also don't want to spread any false rumors in case the mob shows up at my door.
Yeah, we're going to need to talk after this interview about which parts you want bleeped out and which parts you want to stay in.
But yeah, so Don ordered me a set, and they took forever to come, but they were here by Christmas. And literally that morning, this is how crazy I was, everyone. I literally put them together and took them outside. It was snowing, and I played in the snow until my fingers were purple.
And your
I was
mom,
so excited.
I just imagine your mom looking out the window, shaking her head, just being like, "I can't believe is this my son? What is even happening?"
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting too because I had been playing on a loner set, I think, from Susan
with the high school band.
Yeah, that Rosewood set. Yeah, that Rosewood set that she started on.
Oh man!
And that she loaned it to Vera when Vera's pipes got smashed.
Oh, the car accident, right?
Yeah.
I need to talk.
I think it was a rollover.
I need to do an interview with Vera and get that story. She told me once, but it's a story that needs to be shared. It's a harrowing story of bagpipe destruction.
It truly is. But so I had been playing on that set and had just replaced the bag that summer. Queen Susan,
radiant as the southern sun.
Didn't do a great job of checking the airtightness of the bag, and me, in all my 15-year-old knowledge, didn't know that I had to check for that.
Well, she was prepping you to really appreciate the Booth pipes when they arrived.
I had been playing on this leaky set, and then I did replace the bag, and they were better. But when I got those Booths, it was like the planets aligned, and my path was laid before my feet. And that's really where it took off, is when I got those Booths. I played constantly every day after school for hours, indoor, outdoor, whenever. I have no idea. I don't know what my dad thought about this either. He's a very silent, quiet type. But I think my grandma was pretty amused by it. She thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Probably because I was driving her kids crazy.
Maybe that's what she found amusing.
Yeah.
Could have been any number of things. You could have been a clown. Whatever would have driven your parents crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Who would you say throughout all of it has been your biggest fan?
My biggest fan? Me. By and large, I am my number one biggest fan.
That is so honest, man. Wowee. I admire your
honesty.
Sorry,
I'm not ashamed.
Yeah, I don't fault you for it either. You're just upfront about it. So go ahead, man. Be your biggest fan. That's great.
I don't know. Maybe that's not true. There might be other people out there. They've just never written me fan letters.
Like
but
you
I write
have
them in my head all the time.
The sheer amount of fan mail you've received from yourself seems to speak to that. I got you.
Yes. I could fill volumes.
That's wonderful. Well, now if you had it to do again, if you could pick any other obsession to have had from childhood until now, would you change it?
No. I think that the experiences I had in all of the bands I've been in were very, very unique experiences that, while they're widespread amongst the bagpiping community, they're very niche actually in terms of the general population. Nobody knows. Maybe we should bleep this next part, but like nobody knows what it's like to stand out on the field at Pleasanton and sip Bushmills whiskey from the bottle while we're supposed to be playing Scotland the Brave. Like, I know what that's like, and it was a great time.
Well, yeah, there's the bar. The bar for entry to that experience is pretty high in a lot of different ways. So,
but like nobody knows what it's like to know that you're going to be exhausted all day, so just decide to go the wall and just have an all-day 4th of July parade experience where you start in the morning, you do the parade, you do the afternoon barbecue, you fall asleep, you go to the next parade, and then you do it all over again, in 2 days. Like, nobody else knows what that's like, and I do it. And it was a cherished experience. As awful as people make out the Provo Parade, I never thought it was that bad. I always got a ton of adrenaline every time we struck in our drones because people would start cheering, and I knew that they were excited to hear us. So I always thought that was a great experience.
That's so cool, Shawn, because I've felt the same way. It's like I don't fault anybody for saying the Provo Parade is terrible, because in a lot of ways it is. It's long, it's really hot, and I feel like it has way too many horses, and all of those horses have way too much stored up in their bladders and colons, and they're just like waiting for the parade, to relieve themselves. But in spite of all that, it's my favorite parade every year, precisely because of that adrenaline. I'm exhausted by the end, but I just feel like there's no other situation where I could go one more song, one more song, one more song, one more song.
Right? Like, some people are addicted to heroin. I guess I'm addicted to the adrenaline from screaming crowds because I think that's so much fun.
That is a lot of fun, that's for sure. So is there anything that is there any part of this experience that you wish you could share with the general public? Like, you think of people who you know and care about who are not pipers, and you think, if you could only feel this, you would be playing bagpipes too, or drums.
You know what? There is, and I tried once in a music class I took while I was in college. So we were all supposed to bring in like a unique type of music that we found intriguing or whatever. Of course, me being me and not knowing anything about popular music at the time because I was in a bagpipe bubble. Literally, Enya and bagpipes were the only things I listened to.
Well, what else do you
for
need?
a long time? Right. I mean, that's like ambrosia. But I wish that I could make people feel what I feel when I hear a really good medley played. A really well put together medley that has good chord progression and good tuning and just really good solid percussion sound. I feel it deep, like in my soul even, which sounds so corny, but to the point where like I can't sit still, like my head has to bob, like my shoulders kind of move up and down or something. Like, I can feel it, and it's like the best feeling in the world to hear that sort of sound, this sort of ensemble sound. And I wish I could make people understand that, but it takes years and years of listening and knowing what to listen for to really get it. And so literally no one knows what I'm feeling when I feel it.
Well, now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but are there any groups or medleys that come to mind when you think of this experience that you would love for other members of the band and any other player or non-player to listen to as sort of an example of, like, here's a great experience?
So there's a couple. Obviously, I don't think it's any secret that SFU has long been one of my idols. Just the people who made up that band.
Yeah, who's that?
Late 90s.
SF what? SF what's this? What's this band you speak of?
Simon Fraser University Pipe Band.
Oh, some quaint little group, huh? I'll have to look them up.
Yeah, they've only won the world championship like 8 times or something. I don't know. But in the late 90s and early 2000s, they were pushing the envelope. There had been decades and decades of musical stagnation in Scotland. The judging over there was very strict and very tied to tradition. And it's, again, I feel like, because it was all a bunch of old codgers who don't like change and weren't willing to listen to the music that was happening right in front of them.
I've heard that opinion expressed before. You're not alone in
SFU
that.
came in, and they're from Canada, and they were pushing the envelope. They were doing things that no band did. They were throwing in harmonies. They were adding reprises to tunes. Just the arrangements of the music they were using, and the music they were selecting was very technically difficult.
Yeah.
And they were nailing it every time. And they were denied a lot of championships that they should have won for many years. But eventually it just got to the point where nobody could deny their superiority. They had it. And it's a very rare thing for a band to be able to do that, because you have to keep the same core members, through thick and thin for years, sometimes decades, to really build that structure and the ability to play together that well.
For sure.
But when they nailed it and got their first world championship, it sort of broke the glass ceiling in a sense, and music in Scotland and worldwide, pipe band music worldwide, completely changed almost overnight, is my feeling. And you can, if you go back and listen to some old recordings and then listen to more contemporary stuff, you'll know what I'm talking about. But like, I idolize them because of that. And in the same vein, the Victoria Police pipe band were doing that in Australia and New Zealand. They were a very strong group, and they had really great players, and they were making really interesting music. And the same thing happened to them. They just got denied and denied and denied. They were snubbed at so many championships. And it's because they were pushing that envelope, because they knew bagpipes could be better. They knew it could be more interesting than just March Just Be Real. And for all the talk I talk on MSR, I do still think it's an important musical form. But we didn't stop developing music when Bach wrote the canon, right?
Right, sure. The MSR is maybe kind of our foundation, but we can move from there.
Music continues to evolve. Bagpiping should not be any different.
Yeah. If you need to take that, Shawn, you can. No big deal. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh,
okay.
Hey.
Here we go.
Yeah, you're back. There we go.
Sorry, I think my Bluetooth turned off. I could hear you through Bluetooth, but not speak.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. So, Victoria Police. They were.
Yeah, so they were a very important group in forming my love for bagpipes, and I really looked up to them because they were known for playing Hellbound Train, right? And
of course, yeah.
Zach was a huge fan of that. You guys played that many times.
Probably too many times.
There might be some who thought it was a little overdone.
It was like, hey, what? Hey, do you have ears?
But
you want to hear this song?
It was also never done in Utah County up until that point. That was very cool that you guys were able to put together a group that could play that tune.
Well, that's sweet of you. I mean, we sure felt cool.
It was an important tune, and the recording from them playing it, I think it was on their Live from the Rockies album, is such a cool recording.
It's amazing, right?
If you have not listened to that, you have got to listen to it because it will blow your mind.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with them in that when I first started playing, well, we don't have to talk about my whole story, but the main group that I listened to when I started was the Wicked Tinkers, and they are great. Aaron Shaw's a great piper, but Don saw that I needed my horizons expanded a bit, and he introduced me to Victoria Police, and that horizon definitely was expanded.
Yeah, he did the same thing with me, because I was obsessed with SFU, and that I still to this day think that their Down Under album is one of the best bagpipe albums ever recorded.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100%.
So again, if you haven't listened to that, you have to listen to that, because I mean, even the Pibroch on there, which a lot of people hate Pibroch. If you sit and listen to it, like it's really, really beautiful and really well done.
That's the first Pibroch I could ever make it through from beginning to end. That was my gateway to Pibroch for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember
it's really interesting.
We had a kind of crabby old judge once when I was in the high school band who came to the pacing games, and he did a clinic with the high school band afterward. And there were a lot of negative things that came out of it, honestly. But one of them was that he was slagging on Victoria Police because they didn't play enough grace notes. And I remember just sitting there listening to this guy and just being like, yeah, but did you listen to what they do play? It's amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, how can you be like, not enough grace notes for me, you know?
Old codger.
Crazy old codger. Well,
but yeah, Don did the same for me, and he gave me a host of 6 or 7 different pipe band albums to listen to, and so my tastes have evolved over time. I think that right now Field Marshal Montgomery is putting out some really, really great stuff.
Yeah.
They have a pretty recent album that was pretty phenomenal, and
that was Ascension, right?
Yes,
or
I think so.
Ascending or something along those lines.
Something, yeah. And it's a pretty great album. They've put in decades of work though to get to where they are.
Yeah, the consistency of like having the crew there and having everybody working hard and stuff. That's a kind of magic that doesn't always come together.
And it could fall apart at any second. And Richard Parks has actually acknowledged that in the past in interviews. That he's like, yeah, it's just all about people being in the right place at the right time, and any one of them could leave, and it could lead to a mass exodus that puts us back where we were 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's one thing that I do try to keep in mind. Like when you talk about your experience early on when you were frustrated and then realize that, it's pretty much the same everywhere. I absolutely mean it that I want everybody who wants to play with any group to feel comfortable doing that. I think that is important. However, I can definitely sympathize with Don at that time with you leaving as one of the stronger members of the band, and quite possibly thinking to himself or not saying it out loud that, he's played with other groups, and maybe he also thought to himself, it's about the same everywhere you go, and he might have been having this 10 years long overview that like if the planets align just right, you get enough people who are committed enough and in the right place in their lives that you can have a band have an amazing sound. And Shawn is one of the planets that's aligning. Now I just need the rest of the planets to align. And then for that aligned planet to say, I'm going to go to this other constellation, I can imagine that would be a challenge.
Yeah, I think that's a valid concern on his part, for sure. For better or worse, I think personally for me, it was a good move. It gave me a little bit more exposure and a wider lens to look at things through. But I mean, everything's 20/20 hindsight.
Yeah, well, of course, and really everything's messy, Everything.
It really is. Messy. I mean, life is hard, and you have to. One of the biggest nuggets of wisdom that my mom's mom, my grandma, ever gave me was that, and this is a direct quote: "You can't please everybody, so you have to please yourself." Mm. And I spent several years trying to please everybody, and eventually decided to please myself. And, it wasn't greener per se, but I did learn some new things, and I was able to bring that back and not only have a wider lens and maybe be a little bit more patient of an individual, but also I sort of scratched the itch and I never needed to worry about it again.
Mm-hmm. Well, and now we get to benefit from your experience, and that's handy. I just it's maybe really woo woo and silly of me, but I love to imagine that anybody who kind of comes through the Garden Valley doors and stays or goes elsewhere remains sort of in really loving family type of relationship with the members of the band, so that those planets aligning right with that analogy, like who knows when the orbit's going to bring everything back together in one form or another. And well, who knows, But I guess I worry a little bit sometimes that it's possible that right now with our band going from having a grade 4 and a grade 5 to being a big grade 5, it could be discouraging for some people. But I feel kind of like recognizing that even groups like Field Marshal that are amazing. Like the recognition that like this is a tenuous balance that doesn't come about at all times, and it's not going to last forever. Like, you know, who knows what next year will bring, or the year after that, or the year after that, you know?
Yeah. And I don't think people should try to plan for that. It's too hard, and you'll just put yourself through hell, trying.
Well, I don't know if this is heavy or deep or what. What is this, Shawn? What are we doing right now? What kind of thing is this?
I don't know. It's kind of been all over the place, huh? You're really not great at controlling the tone.
I'm not. No, I'm terrible at this.
It goes from like hilarious laughter to very like somber and like philosophical.
Well,
with no warning.
And how Shawn? I mean, how do you feel about pineapple as a pizza topping?
It's an abomination, and if you disagree, I will have to flay you alive.
So just now I thought this conversation was going to get lighter, but it got darker. So
nope.
Remarkable.
Pineapple should never be on pizza, and people who think otherwise are evil. They're soulless beings.
Well, agree to disagree. Well, to kind of put a button in it, Shawn, I've got a final question I can ask you, but before I do that, do you have any anything? I mean, this is for the band. You know, thinking of the band. You know, anything you want to say to them? Any words of wisdom or anything at all?
Don't put Twinkies on your pizza.
Well,
or pineapple.
All right. Well, those are two entirely different things, but let's not get too deep into the weeds here. So to finish it up, do you have any pre-performance ritual before you're going to go out for competition or for any other kind of performance, whether it's from the night before or just moments before? What things to psych yourself up? Anything at all that you like to do?
So I have a horrible memory, and I'm constantly paranoid that I'm going to forget a part of my uniform. Mm-hmm. So the night before I'm going to do a gig, I always get my uni bag out. I open it up. I make sure I have a shirt, that I have a vest, that I have, if I'm going to need it, like a jacket or a sweater, hose. Like I just go through the whole uniform list the night before a gig. Even if I'm not bringing the uni bag with me, like if I'm going to get dressed in the morning, I still put everything in that bag so that I don't forget to put something on.
Do you ever lay your uniform out on the bed in the shape of yourself, like on the first day of school, and once it's all set, then just like slide under the covers so that you sleep underneath it? So it's just totally ready to go?
No, I can't do that, because while I sleep relatively sound and don't move the covers, Darren is what you call a fish out of water. And so
you need those I Love Lucy separate twins.
I'm considering it very heavily. So no, that would not work for me.
Cool. Well, thanks, Shawn. Thanks for chatting. I personally would like to keep talking forever, but for the sake of making a single episode, you know, even if I take a couple little bits out of here, we're probably looking at over an hour. So.
Oh yeah, it's like 6:20 now.
Yeah, man. Jeez.